Hello folks, here's a countdown of the Randomise User top 5 indie games that came out in 2020. As ever, these are all full releases, nothing in early access. At number 5, BPM. And most of the games in this year's countdown have an element of flawed masterpiece about them. There's something messy, weird or off-putting in each of them that nevertheless makes me love them all the more. Bullets per minute is not for everyone. You can only shoot enemies on the beat of the music, and the enemies move likewise. It sounds horribly restrictive and way too difficult, but honestly, you learn, you adapt, and then it clicks and you're on top of the world as you pound out kills to a gloriously over-the-top rock soundtrack. I found it compelling and impossible to stop playing until I'd beaten the game once, and even then I was desperate for the unlocks, which is rare for me. I usually flit around from game to game like a blue-ass fly. At number 4, Burning Night. It's getting harder and harder to get noticed in the action roguelite, dungeon crawling genre, but Burning Night did everything right, for me at least. I think I prefer it to Enter the Gungeon, which is a great game, but it lacks the crunchy retro flavours in my breakfast cereal of video game dreams. What the hell did that mean? Delete it. Anyway, Burning Night has loads of weapons and playstyles, random levels, bullet hells, treasures and items galore. Like a lot of games really. So I find it tough to convince you why this deserves such a high billing, but man, the look of it, the feel, the silliness, and oh man, that one piece of music that has so permanently lodged itself in my brain that I still sometimes wake up in the middle of the night screaming, please make it stop. It's annoyingly perfect, and perfectly annoying. At number 3, Noita. This hit version 1.0 this year, but it was clearly going to be a top 5 entry back when it launched into early access. It did suffer from it being not exactly what people expected it to be. Yes, it's a roguelike platformer where every pixel is simulated, leading to some really funny and exciting physics. But it's definitely not a playful sandbox. It's more of a way of discovering a million ways to die unexpectedly, and either screaming with rage or laughing your arse off. Now, I've been more than happy to work my way through brutal and divisive games such as Rain World and then declare it the best game of the year, so it's no surprise that I rate this game highly. It's also packed with secrets and stuff that, if you just try to run to the end, you'll only see a fraction of the game. Often it's best not to even try to win, just explore, see what you can do, what you can find. Only play this if you really buy into what it's trying to do. It won't forgive you for a quick 5 minutes of play here and there. And number 2, Spiritfarer. And what a beautiful, perfect game this was, and I barely even covered it on the channel due to bad timing. On paper, it's a mishmash of thought-provoking story, exploration, management, puzzles, and shipbuilding, with a fascinating premise where you are the ferrymaster to the dead, sailing around in your customisable boat. But it's achingly wonderful to play, charming, captivating even. The animations are gorgeous, and the writing's top drawer. Something to lose yourself in. Okay, so before we reach the foregone conclusion, you can support Randomise User's mission to hunting down the best indie games around by dropping me a tip on Buy Me a Coffee, or show your support monthly by signing up to my Patreon. At the moment, everyone who signs up will get access to my new Link to the Past Randomizer series, with film-length episodes coming out every few weeks. It's not indie, but it sure is randomised. And so number 1, Risk of Rain 2. If you've been a subscriber this year, me saying Risk of Rain 2 is the best game of the year won't be a surprise. Especially if you saw the channel Discord just after the 1.0 release and couldn't move for all the hot Risk of Rain chat. I mean, I was expecting to enjoy this game, but I fell in love. It's a first-person melee and shooty game, but in the same way that Binding of Isaac is just a 2D shooter game. It's way better than the sum of its parts, but some of those parts aren't obvious at first and need to be discovered. The sheer number of items you unlock, suddenly you discover synergies between them. Suddenly you discover how your survivor can adapt to enemies who seem to stay just out of reach or pelt you with seemingly unavoidable fire. You work out when to get stuck in and when to pull back, when to snipe and when to run. You find solutions. You unlock new survivors and fall in love with them. You play the mercenary. You play the mercenary again, until you genuinely forget that most survivors can actually do ranged combat. That's probably more me than you, admittedly. Then you fight your way to the later stages, and you fight Mithrix for the first time, who is impossible. And then, eventually, you beat him. Or maybe you beat the game in the other way, or find a particularly hidden realm and finish the game and wonder if it counted as winning or losing. Man, there's a lot going on here. Like bullets per minute, this was a rare game that made me want to play it and play it until I'd mastered it. I have almost all the achievements in this game, beaten Mithrix many times, and unlocked all survivors and most items. And yet, I still feel really bad at it, at least compared to some. If you come to it without prior knowledge of Risk of Rain, you may struggle with a lot of it, particularly the difficulty. I do feel bad about recommending difficult games that some people will simply never be able to get into, and I feel like I've done this 3 times in this short countdown. But I've not enjoyed a game as much as Risk of Rain 2 this year, so here we are, all the lads together. Etc. And that's all, folks. Thanks for watching Randomise User this year. 2020 was a tough year for everyone, but at least we had our precious indie games. And of course, Game of the Year, Animal Crossing. Oh, do shut up, Jamie.